Chauvin worked as a security guard at a nightclub in Minnesota, and we're actually learning that the victim in this case, George Floyd, also worked as a security guard. Recently, the press spoke to the owner of the nightclub, and we've learned a little more about who Chauvin is, but more importantly, what the police officers in the area are like when they work as security guards at her nightclub. Take a look.
Noticed that he got very anxious when there was an urban night where there were a lot of African American people, as did many other officers. He was certainly not the only one.
What did he do? How did he act?
Well, really, it's systemic because it started all the way from licensing and went through the third precinct, and then was an expression of also how the officers reacted when they were there. I would just kind of characterize it as skittish. So they would get very nervous very quickly and want to pull out the pepper spray with any little thing that might happen. And they certainly acted very kind of group mentality. They always had to call backup if a little tiny thing happened. So it was different than what we saw in our Latin nights.
I mean, I'm not surprised, but I'm glad that we have more people coming out and talking about who this cop was as a person.
Yeah. I mean, look, we've been saying it for 2 days. The guy had 18 complaints against him. So it's the system that knows who he is. Was he taken off the street? Nope. I don't. That is in essence the system saying we don't have a problem with a guy who gets 18 complaints, and it's not just about him. That sends a message to all the other cops. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We'll get your back. You do anything you like to those people because they don't matter. And so, is anyone on planet Earth that's being honest surprised that the cops are more hostile and on guard when they're dealing with African Americans in any context? Look, I don't even think the right wing would pretend that that isn't the case. I think the right wing would just say, yeah, but they had it coming because, black people are violent. And so that's why cops are naturally more likely to be on guard with them, et cetera. They don't realize that they're owning up to their racism, but that no one thinks, oh, yeah, cops, they are white, black, Latino. They can't tell the difference at all. Look, some now, including and maybe especially on the left, think, bad guys go into this profession in the first place. I remember having arguments with Jimmy Dore about this. And I don't know the psychology of that, and I don't care, and I don't think overall, even if that were true, that would be a minor point. The major point is, what does the system encourage and incentivize? And what does it discourage and disincentivize? So when it says to cops, you can do anything you want to minorities and always get away with it, and hey, be on guard for these type of people, it encourages this. So don't pretend that you're surprised when you see that George Floyd video, because that's the system we built. It was built to do just that. It's not the bug, it's the feature.
It's so much embedded in the DNA of this country that a woman at Central Park can say, I'm going to call the police and tell them that an African American is harassing me. It's so much part of the DNA of the country that a white woman will fake crying to the cops because she knows that she can weaponize the police against Black people, and it will probably result in violence. That is how how common it is. We see the barbecue Beckys, and we see the Central Park Sarahs, and we got a long list of them now, but it's because even they know that the police will come faster when it comes to Black people. They will probably be more violent and more aggressive. The other thing that I wanted to address is about when they say that Black people are violent or that Latinos are violent and marginalized people are violent. Isn't it ironic that the most violent people on the planet, the ones that went over to Africa and kidnapped people, enslaved them for 400 years, built their country on free labor on the backs of these people, the people that go and who raped and pillaged the First Nations people of this country, the people who go abroad and terrorize, as Anna said earlier, that it's happening in the Middle East, it's happened throughout Central America, have the audacity and the gall to classify a group of people who have been subject to their reign their whole lives as violent. I find that a little bit odd.
Look, the United States just orchestrated a coup in Bolivia to overthrow a leftist leader, and the images of violence by the now right-wing government there, the right-wing government that the United States supports, is just, it makes your stomach churn. It's disgusting. We support all sorts of violence around the world and in our own country on a regular basis. I'm not bringing this up to justify violence. I'm bringing it up to make a point about how the very people who claim they're against violence when it comes to these protesters are the biggest supporters of violence when it comes to financial interests, corporate interests, business interests here in the United States, or when it comes to the gun lobby. Because really, when they get to choose between lessening violence in this country by passing common sense gun control laws, just a damn background check when it comes to gun sales between private sellers and these, gun shows, they won't do it. They choose violence over lessening the amount of mass shootings in this country all the time. So I don't believe them. I don't believe that they don't like violence. I believe that they love violence, but they use these arguments to continue to oppress groups in this country that have historically been oppressed. That's what this is about.
If you think about those protesters in Michigan who had their guns on their hip, screaming in the face of police officers who got to go home that day. You think about all the babies that were murdered in Connecticut, and you think about Dylan Roof getting bought a Whopper and was treated with grace and decency after murdering 9 Black people who were in church. So I don't want to hear all of that. And you know what's funny? We have these conversations, and these politicians, who the Republicans and Democrats alike, they politicize these events. They pretend Democrats, we historically have been on the side of civil rights, yet nothing has changed in the communities of Black and brown people since the beginning of time. It doesn't matter who's been in office. So we can sit here and have these fake conversations about how it's going to get better because Donald Trump is out of office. Donald Trump is just a symptom of the bigger disease. And as idiotic as he is, Mitch McConnell is more dangerous than him because he has half a brain. So let's not try to play the game like these political parties have not been benefiting from the multiple deaths, unnecessary deaths of Black and brown people. It is time for us to have a real change in this country. And if I don't advocate for violence, and I don't get anything out of white people being hurt. I cried for those babies and those high schoolers, just like I cry for everybody else, because I believe in the value of all human lives. But I will not stand next to anybody who thinks that a brown or a Black life is less than a white life, and it is only valuable when your neighborhood is shaken.
So real quick, two things to add to what you guys said. One is, look, there's a lot of things that I love about this country. We moved to this country. At the same time, if you're being honest about how we came to be a country, of course we were born of violence. Slavery is the most violent thing you can imagine. And now the right wing claims, oh, we're all about liberty and our history and tradition is about liberty. Well, some of it is, and the other half is the exact opposite. It is the most violent, bloody thing you could possibly imagine. And what's manifest destiny? God says we should come and take your stuff and kill you along the way. I mean, to say that the country did not arise out of violence is insanity. Of course it did. And to Ida's point about the Michigan protesters, somebody did a side-by-side on social media of what Trump said about them versus the protesters in Minneapolis. The white guys that came with assault rifles and threatened legislators and cops, et cetera, he called them very good people. For the protesters in Minneapolis, he called them thugs.
Of course he did.
So that's Donald Trump for you.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.